They say silence is golden, but when it comes from a man you care about, it can feel like torture. You find yourself questioning, is he done? Has he moved on? Does he even think about me anymore? But here's what no one tells you. His silence is not the end. It's often where his obsession begins. You see, most people think silence means disinterest. They assume when he pulls away, he's losing feelings. But that's the mistake. What if I told you his silence can actually be the loudest sign that you still have a powerful hold on his mind? What if his distance is his way of staying emotionally attached to you without having to admit it? Because when a man is silent, it doesn't mean he's indifferent. It usually means he's conflicted, he's processing, he's struggling, and sometimes he's even fighting the urge to come back. In this video, I'm going to reveal the hidden emotional patterns behind his silence, the secret language he's using without saying a word. You'll discover why silence is often a shield men hide behind when they care more than they're willing to show. So before you assume he's gone, before you blame yourself, and before you think you need to chase him, pause. His silence holds more answers than his words ever will. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you won't just understand what his silence means. You'll know how to use it to regain your power, protect your heart, and maybe even flip the game in your favor. Let's uncover the truth. It's easy to misread silence as closure. When a man goes quiet, stops calling, or begins to withdraw, the most natural reaction is to assume he's emotionally finished, that he's lost interest, or that he's moved on. But here's the truth most people overlook. Silence does not mean absence, and it rarely means indifference. In fact, silence can be one of the strongest indicators that he's still emotionally tangled in thoughts of you. Men don't process emotions the same way women typically do. When overwhelmed, hurt, or conflicted, many men retreat, not because they no longer care, but because they don't know how to handle the depth of what they're feeling. Society teaches men to suppress, not express. So when they feel something powerful, they often choose silence because speaking would expose their vulnerability. Think about this. If he were truly over you, he wouldn't need to be silent. Indifference is loud in its own way. It's carefree, open, and emotionally distant, without the weight of avoidance. Silence, on the other hand, is purposeful. It's a space men often create to manage emotions they can't yet face. It's like an emotional timeout. He pulls away not to forget you, but to figure out what you still mean to him. Silence is also a control mechanism. Sometimes a man goes silent because he wants to shift the emotional power. He's hoping you'll start chasing him, questioning yourself, or trying harder to get his attention. Whether he realizes it or not, he's using silence to create tension. It's a tactic to see how deeply you're still invested. Here's something even more fascinating. When a man is genuinely over someone, he doesn't need to create distance. He's simply not there, mentally or emotionally. But when a man stays silent yet continues to watch your stories, keeps mutual connections, remembers small details, or suddenly resurfaces after weeks of quiet, that's not disconnection. That's attachment playing out in disguise. You might notice he's still paying attention in subtle ways, liking a post, asking mutual friends about you, showing up where you might be, or randomly reaching out without fully committing to a conversation. These micro actions betray what his silence tries to hide. He's still hooked, still invested, and very possibly still obsessed. What's important for you to understand is this. His silence isn't your signal to chase him. It's your invitation to step back, hold your position, and let him feel the full weight of your absence. Let him sit in the silence he created. Let him realize that the connection he's pretending to detach from is actually the very thing he's afraid to lose. When you can read his silence correctly, you no longer feel powerless. You see that his distance doesn't diminish your worth. It confirms your impact. In this next section, we'll dive deeper into the psychological signs that prove his silent obsession is real. Stay tuned. When a man is silently obsessed with you, it's rarely loud or obvious. His silence doesn't mean he's let you go. It means he's wrestling with feelings he either doesn't want to admit or doesn't know how to express. Most people assume that when someone goes quiet, they've emotionally detached. But the truth is, silence can be a powerful sign of hidden attachment. It's in the small, quiet patterns where his obsession actually reveals itself. One of the most telling signs is when he keeps tabs on you from a distance. Even though he's not speaking to you directly, he's still quietly watching. He's scrolling through your posts, watching your stories, maybe even checking your profile more often than he would ever admit. These aren't random actions. When a man is truly done with you, he stops checking. He doesn't keep windows open into your life. But when he's obsessed, silence becomes his way to stay connected while protecting his pride. He craves those small glimpses of your life, because even though he's not showing up in it, he can't fully let it go. You might also hear from mutual friends that he's been asking about you. He probably phrases it casually, like he's just wondering how you're doing. But the curiosity is real, and it's emotional. He wants to know if you're happy, if you've moved on, if someone else has your attention. It's not just curiosity, it's about maintaining an invisible connection to you. Even in silence, he's trying to stay close. Another undeniable sign is how his behavior shifts when you stop reaching out. If you've been the one maintaining the connection and then you suddenly pull away, it tends to trigger a response in him. You'll often notice he resurfaces, sometimes with a simple like on your post, sometimes with a random message that seems out of nowhere. It's not random. When you step back, it shakes his emotional comfort zone. Silent obsession is never as stable as it looks. When you remove your energy, it disrupts the balance and he feels that loss. His silence was never about forgetting. It was a test of whether you would check. And when you don't, his need to re-establish contact pulls him back in. You might even notice he starts showing up in places where you are. The same coffee shop, the same social events, the same hangout spots you've always visited. These aren't coincidences. When a man is silently obsessed, he manufactures chances to see you without making it look intentional. Being near you, even if he's not speaking, gives him the emotional hit he's been missing. He gets to see you, to sense your presence, while still pretending to stay silent. But deep down, that proximity is no accident. Perhaps one of the strongest signs is how much he remembers. When he brings up small details from the past, your favorite snack, the movie you loved, the exact date of a special memory, it's proof that he's been carrying those moments with him all along. Time doesn't erase obsession, it stores it. Silence doesn't delete the connection, it protects. What's most important is realizing that his silence is not a vacuum. It's not empty. It's filled with suppressed emotions, unsaid words, and mental loops where you still play a major role. His silence might feel like rejection, but more often it's a quiet battle between his pride and his feelings. He might never admit it out loud, but his behavior tells you everything. He's still connected, he's still watching, and whether he shows it or not, he's still obsessed. Stay with me, because in the next section we'll uncover exactly how his everyday actions betray his silent feeling. His silence might seem like a wall, but if you look closely, his everyday actions tell a completely different story. A man may never openly admit what he feels, especially when pride, confusion, or fear get in the way. But his daily behaviors quietly reveal the emotions he's trying to hide. Often it's in the routines, in the subtle choices, and in the unconscious habits where his true feelings slip through. You may notice that he keeps showing up in your world in small, almost coincidental ways. Maybe he's suddenly active on the same social platforms you use, or he's frequenting the same places you both used to visit. These moments might seem random on the surface, but they're rarely accident. His decision to be in places connected to you shows that he's still mentally tied to the life you once shared. When a man has truly moved on, he naturally drifts away from everything linked to you. But when he's still emotionally caught up, even in silence, he finds ways to stay connected to your environment. Sometimes he doesn't even realize he's doing it. It's like his heart is still looking for you, even if his mouth remains closed. There's also a noticeable change in how he interacts with other people around you. If you're in shared social circles, pay attention to how he behaves when you're present. He might avoid eye contact, or he might overcompensate by acting indifferent or overly casual. But his energy often betrays him. He may find reasons to be near you, but keeps the conversation minimal, almost as if he's afraid that speaking too much would expose how much he still cares. Watch how he mirrors your actions from a distance, how he positions himself in a room, or how he seems to linger in your space longer than necessary. These small everyday movements reveal more about his emotional state than any direct conversation ever could. You might also notice that he brings up your name in conversations with mutual friends. It might be subtle, just a passing comment about you, a question about what you've been doing, or curiosity about your current life. This is not just polite interest, it's a sign that you're still taking up space in his mind. A man who's done doesn't keep checking in, even indirectly. The fact that he wants updates shows he's still emotionally involved, even if he's pretending to keep his distance. Another common giveaway is when he randomly reaches out without saying anything meaningful. He might send a simple hey or comment on something trivial, like a shared memory or a funny post. These interactions may seem casual, but the timing often is. They usually come when you've pulled back, when you've gone quiet, or when he feels the weight of your absence. It's as if he can't resist testing the connection, even if he doesn't fully engage. These small initiations are his way of checking whether the door is still open, whether you'll still respond, and whether he still matters to you. Even the way he treats himself can reveal his hidden feeling. You might hear through others that he's struggling with motivation, his routine has changed, or he seems emotionally off balance. Silent obsession can disrupt a man's usual pattern. When he's stuck in his own thoughts about you, it often shows up in his mood, his energy levels, and the quality of his day-to-day life. The truth is, his everyday actions don't lie. He may never say he's thinking about you. He may never confess that you're still in his heart. But his silence, combined with these quiet behaviors, speaks louder than words ever could. If you pay attention, you'll realize his feelings never really left. You just have to learn how to read what he's not saying. There's a unique kind of tension that lives in the space between what's said and what's left unspoken. When a man is silent, when he pulls away, when he stops reaching out, it's tempting to think there's nothing left to say. But the truth is, there are often so many words trapped just beneath the surface. Words he wants to say, but can't. Sometimes it's because pride gets in the way. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes he genuinely doesn't know how to untangle the complicated feelings he's carrying inside. But silence doesn't mean he has nothing to express. It usually means he has too much. What he's not saying is that he misses you more than he's comfortable admitting. He tells himself he shouldn't, that he needs to be strong, that he should have moved on by now. But in quiet moments when there's no one else around, your memory pulls at him. He wants to tell you that he still thinks about you, that there are songs, places, and random moments in his day that bring you rushing back into his mind. But he holds it in, believing that keeping his distance protects him from vulnerability. What he's not saying is that he wonders if you've already replaced him in your heart. The thought gnaws at him, even if he's the one who walked away, even if he's pretending not to care. Deep down, he hopes that you still think about him as much as he thinks about you. He wants to ask, but his pride won't let him. So instead, he sits with the questions, torturing himself with the silence, hoping somehow the answers will reveal themselves without him having to break first. What he's not saying is that he's scared of how much you still matter to him. Scared that if he lets those feelings surface again, they'll consume him. Scared that if he reaches out, you might not feel the same anymore. It's easier for him to pretend you're just a passing thought than to face the possibility of rejection. His silence isn't because he doesn't care. It's because he cares more than he's prepared to handle. What he's not saying is that part of him wishes he could go back. Maybe he replayed the last conversation 100 times, thinking of better words, thinking of ways he could have fixed it. He might never tell you that regret lingers in his chest, but it does. He may act as though he's made peace with the distance, but his mind often drifts to the moments when everything was easier, when connection was natural, when being with you felt safe. What he's not saying is that your silence is the loudest thing he hears right now. He notices your absence. He notices the lack of your texts, your voice, your energy, and it unsettles him. He may not admit it, but he feels the shift. He feels the weight of you pulling back, of you choosing not to chase him, of you valuing your peace more than the story you used to share. The words he's not saying often say the most. They are the words that reveal his inner battle, the ones that would expose his longing, his regret, his confusion, and the parts of him that still can't let you go. He may package his silence as strength, but it's often just a wall he's built because stepping around it feels too risky. What you need to remember is this: just because he's not speaking doesn't mean the story is over. Silence is not the absence of feeling. Sometimes silence is where the deepest feelings live, and sometimes the words he's not saying are the ones he wishes you would hear the most. It's easy to miss the signs when a man is still emotionally attached to you, especially when he's silent or distant. He might not send long texts or call late at night, but emotional attachment often leaves behind quiet traces that speak louder than the absence of direct communication. These subtle clues are scattered in the way he shows up in life, in the small things he does, or even in the things he avoids. If you pay attention, you'll realize that emotional attachment doesn't always look like grand gestures. It often hides in the details that most people overlook. One of the most telling signs is the way he lingers around your digital space. Even if he's not talking to you, he stays connected to your online life. He watches your stories, he keeps liking your posts, or he might stop interacting altogether, but still shows up in your viewer list. It's as if he's quietly standing in the corner of the room, listening in, still curious about what's happening in your life. If he had truly detached emotionally, your updates wouldn't matter to him. But when a man is still tied to you, he finds ways to keep you in his mental orbit, even if he tells himself he's moved on. Sometimes the clues are even more subtle. You might hear from mutual friends that he's been bringing you up in conversation. He might ask how you've been, or what you're doing, always in a casual tone, trying not to sound too interested. But asking about you, even in passing, reveals you're still on his mind. These questions aren't just polite. They come from a place of emotional investment that he's not willing to acknowledge directly. You may notice that he seems to appear in places where he knows you might be. Maybe he shows up at mutual hangouts, at events you usually attend, or in familiar places you once shared. It can feel coincidental, but these patterns often aren't accidental. A man who is still emotionally attached will find ways to stay close to your world without crossing obvious boundaries. It's his way of maintaining a form of proximity without opening himself up to rejection. Another clue is how he reacts when he hears you've moved on, or that you're talking to someone new. Even if he pretends not to care, you can often sense the shift. He may go colder, he may withdraw even more, or sometimes he will suddenly resurface in small unexpected ways. His silence might break just enough for him to re-enter your life, not necessarily to rebuild the connection, but to remind you that he's still there. These micro movements usually carry emotional weight. They show that despite his distance, he hasn't fully let go. You might also notice that he holds on to things that connect him to you. It could be photos, gifts, or even old conversations. If you happen to cross paths again and realize he's kept those memories intact, it's a powerful clue that his emotional attachment is still alive, even if it's buried under silence. People who truly move on often clear out emotional triggers, but when he holds on to those things, it shows he hasn't fully severed the emotional tie. Sometimes the strongest sign is simply the energy shift you feel when you interact. No matter how brief, there's a tension, a hesitation, a flicker in his eyes that tells you his emotions are still entangled. Words may not come easily, but the connection still hums quietly beneath the surface. These subtle clues are not mistakes, they're not random. They are the echoes of a connection that hasn't fully died. And when you begin to see these small but persistent signs, you'll realize that his silence was never really about being over you. It was about the emotional struggle he's still wrestling with, even if he can't admit it to himself. When faced with a man's silence, it's tempting to chase, to reach out, to fill the gap he's created. But the most powerful thing you can do is resist that urge. Silence has its own energy, and if you want to regain your power, you have to learn to let him sit in the very silence he chose. Responding from a place of strength doesn't mean reacting quickly or emotionally. It means stepping back, holding your position, and allowing him to feel the true weight of your absence. The first step to regaining your power is understanding that you don't need to solve the silence. You don't need to break it, fix it, or smooth it over. The moment you try to fill the silence, you hand over your emotional control. What actually shifts the balance is when you calmly accept the distance without chasing, without demanding answers, and without offering him emotional safety he hasn't earned. This is when your energy starts to pull back from him, and it's when he begins to feel what it's like to miss you. Not because you've made yourself more available, but because you've made yourself scarce. When you allow silence to stand, you force him to confront his own feeling. You stop giving him reassurance that you'll always be there waiting. Instead of constantly signaling your presence, you become a question mark in his mind, and the human mind doesn't like unanswered questions. He will start to feel the tension, the uncertainty, the absence of your attention. And this is where his emotional discomfort grows. People chase what they fear they might lose, not what they feel they can always have. Regaining your power is also about redirecting your energy back to yourself. Instead of focusing on what he's thinking or whether he's noticing you, turn that energy toward rebuilding your own center. Spend time nurturing your life, your goals, your friendships, your happiness. Become unavailable in ways that are authentic, not forced. When you genuinely shift your focus from him to yourself, your entire energy changes. You're no longer in the emotional waiting room, hoping he comes back. You're moving forward, and that movement is what creates magnetic attraction. When you do interact, whether by chance or if he reaches out, the way you respond is critical. Stay warm but distant. Be polite, but not overly engaged. You don't need to punish him with coldness, but you also don't need to reward his silence with immediate attention. Respond slowly, at your own pace, without making yourself too accessible. Emotional power comes from pacing your responses and controlling your availability. Let him feel that your world doesn't stop, because he's not in it. Your tone should carry the quiet confidence of someone who is perfectly fine, whether he's there or not. You don't need to pretend or play games. Your real power is in genuinely valuing yourself enough to know that you deserve consistent effort, not confusion. When you hold that belief with steady calmness, people feel it. They sense that they can't just walk in and out of your life without consequences. Sometimes regaining your power also means choosing not to respond at all. Silence can be your most powerful reply when the situation no longer serves you or when his silence has gone too far. Without explanation, walking away with dignity is sometimes the boldest, strongest move you can make. It signals that you're no longer participating in one-sided emotional dynamic. Ultimately, the way you respond should reflect your self-worth, your boundaries, and your emotional maturity. You are not there to rescue him from his silence. You are there to protect your peace, reclaim your balance, and let your absence speak where your words are no longer required. This is where real power lives. Silence can feel like a dead end, but the truth is, silence is rarely empty. It holds weight, meaning and often unspoken emotions. When a man pulls away, when his words stop, when his presence fades, it's easy to assume that you've been forgotten, that you no longer matter. But what you've learned is that silence is not always the sign of disinterest. It's sometimes the clearest sign of inner conflict, emotional overwhelm, or silent obsession. The real question isn't whether he's thinking about you. It's whether you can see through his silence and truly understand what it's saying. When you step back and stop chasing answers, you begin to notice the patterns that his silence reveals. His quiet is not a conclusion, it's a space filled with tension, longing, and unsaid words. It's in the way he continues to orbit your life. It's in the things he remembers. It's in the accidental messages, the sudden reappearances, the small traces that prove he's still emotionally connected even when he's trying to appear detached. These subtle signs become louder when you stop talking, when you stop filling the silence for him. That's when his quiet starts to echo in his own mind, and that's when his behavior begins to speak for him. But the most important takeaway is this: seeing through the silence is not about waiting for him to return, hoping for him to speak, or clinging to every small sign. It's about recognizing that your power has always been in your ability to read the truth and still choose yourself. It's about learning to trust that the absence of words doesn't mean the absence of feelings, but even if those feelings exist, you don't need to chase them. You don't need to beg for clarity. You don't need to rescue anyone from their emotional silence. Sometimes the silence teaches you more than words ever could. It teaches you patience. It teaches you self-respect. And most of all, it teaches you when to let go. The ability to see through the silence is the ability to stand still in your own strength, to know that you are worth consistency, communication, and emotional honesty. When you can walk away from someone's silence without losing yourself, you've already won. If he chooses to stay silent, let him. If he chooses distance, honor it. You don't need to force what should flow naturally. And if he realizes that your absence is louder than his silence, if he sees what he's lost when you stop showing up for him, that's his battle to face. Your role is not to wait. Your role is to keep moving forward, to keep growing, to keep living a life that doesn't pause for someone else's indecision. See through the silence, see the truth, and remember that the most powerful response you can give to someone who's unsure about you is to become absolutely sure about yourself. That's how you win. That's how you rise. And that's how you turn silence into your greatest strength.